Hi guys, welcome back. So we've got the teams out for Saturday's clashes in round 2, Scotland versus Wales and Ireland versus France. The big one that's being billed as maybe the decider. But if Scotland win, obviously they're 2 wins from 2. And for Scotland, not many changes at all. In fact, the only change is a fit again Zander Fagerson, and I think that's fair enough. He's been their first choice tight head anyway. Nell drops to the bench, so that's the only change. Looking at their team, the wingers were particularly impressive. Steyn and van der Merwe, big, quick wingers, very dangerous. And then Tuipulotu and Jones is the most attacking lineup I think they can have in their centres. White retains, of course, after his excellent performance. Nice try from him. The pack, they're going to have a nice big clash against the Welsh. Richie Gray, the absolute mountain in the second row, doing a lot of dog work. And then Richie and Crosby continue as the flankers, and Fagerson, who was all over the place making those tackles. So with the addition of Zander Fagerson, probably a slightly stronger team indeed than faced England. Plus they're at home. And this is the test. These are the sorts of games they need to win if they're going to be winning Six Nations and be serious in the World Cup. Off a big win against England, then they're at home against Wales, who had that poor performance last time. They need to win this. So I would say the pressure is on Scotland. They are the favourites, and Wales can play that underdog role. So straight on to Wales, and this is where the big stories are. Gatland's been very bold. I guess you could say it's only his second game in charge of this new era, so he needs to look at new players. But if you have a look at the players that have gone, they're players who have underperformed in the last game. Talupi Faletau having a rare poor game, he drops to the bench. Tipperick, who had a very poor game as well, drops out completely. Alan Wynne-Jones, who I believe is fit, again drops out completely. So some big statements, whatever the reason. At 1, Wynne-Jones returns from injury, so that could be a good thing for Wales. He used to be a regular starter. Ken Owens at 2, who I thought was a little underwhelming, especially when you compared him against the likes of Sheehan. But he's the captain, he works hard, so he's obviously going to stay. Maybe a little surprise to see Dylan Lewis promoted to a start. We've got the big guys on the bench there, Carey and Brown. I was hoping maybe they'd get a start, but maybe that would be too many changes. But indeed, like in my selection video, Daffyd Jenkins does get a start. I do like the look of him, although still very young, alongside Adam Beard. And then Chris Schwinzer, who comes straight into blindside after not featuring at all in the 23 last time out. And most of us said we want him in the team, or at least in the 23. And he's straight in there, starting at 6. Big guy, good in the line-out as well. He'll do a lot of carrying, as will Morgan, who's moved from 6 to 8. So a big pressure on Morgan to be the main carrier. And he has been, especially considering he didn't get into Wales for a while because his carrying wasn't good enough. Then the Form 7, Rafael, comes in for Tipperick, so let's see what he can do, especially at the breakdown. The backline stays exactly the same. Certain players maybe didn't have the best game, like Biggar, maybe George North, but they get given another chance. But on the bench, we do see a few changes, like I mentioned, Leon Brown coming in for the tight head replacement, huge, strong guy. Rhys Davis, the young second row. Faletau's there on the bench still Rhys Webb. Rhys Patchell gets in there instead of Owen Williams. I think that's a bit tough on Owen Williams. I'd have liked to see him have a start maybe. And Cuthbert is the outside back on the bench, so I'm still guessing that Josh Adams is the centre cover if they need it. So then on to the big one as it's billed, Ireland versus France. And Ireland, well, why change a winning side? Only one change, and it's a big shame to see Sheehan dropping out because he's been looking so good. Herring comes in, who's very good in the set piece, very reliable. Could be a good starter against France. And then you've got Kelleher. Great news, he's fit to come on the bench. So that's a good impact sub. So actually, even though they've lost their starting hooker, still looking pretty strong there. Then we've got the same lineup. Byrne and Ryan in the second row. Staying with Amani, Van der Fleer and Caelan Doris with Jack Conan on the bench. I did wonder if Coombs would be a better bet for this game. He possibly covers a bit more. Could play a big 6, could play 8 plus a bit more size to counteract the huge French pack. But anyway, they've still gone with Conan on the bench. Kelleher, like I mentioned, coming in. Kilcoyne, O'Toole, Henderson the same. The very quick nippy Casey, Ross Byrne and Bundyaki the same replacement. So very much building on their win against Wales. A little bit of a change in at hooker, but I don't think that's going to be too much of a trouble. So they're going to be very confident at home. I think they'll be favourites at home, but goodness me, they've got a massive job on their hands because the big French team is coming. and only 2 changes from a substandard performance against Italy, so they could have mixed it up. But the difference with France and Wales is that Gaultier pretty much knows his best team, so he's giving these guys another go. One thing he is doing is just bringing in even more experience onto the bench. Francois Cross and Coolio come on, so a little bit more experience than the youngsters, like the talented scrum half Le Garrec drops out. They need to get much better in their team flow attack, and they've got to lower their penalty count. So I'm sure they've been talking to the ref and the authorities saying, what did we do wrong, trying to get that right, because they're going to want to contest at the ruck, because the likes of Marchand wasn't really getting any joy there. So the starting 15 exactly the same as last time out, and surely some of these players will have slightly better games individually, the likes of Marchand. Olivon didn't have the greatest games, so I imagine they're going to step up. But like I said, as a team, they need to step up if they're going to take on Ireland. And when I had my conversation with Tim from Egg Chasers, the question I had was, are they going to go direct? Are they going to simplify? Or are they going to go for that fast offloading game? What's the mix going to be between those two? Because away from home, maybe they need to tighten up and take Ireland on. Physically, I don't know. I think Ireland will quite like it if it breaks up a bit so they can push that defensive line up. But the French defence was also very strong, so it's going to be a real arm wrestle, I think. So whoever wins this one is probably the favourites to go on and win the Six Nations. But like I said, if Scotland beat Wales, they are 2 from 2 as well, in with a great shout. So whoever wins Ireland versus France is probably the favourites for the Six Nations. But if Scotland win their game against Wales, then obviously they're 2 from 2. Pop all those predictions below of who you think's going to win, and it isn't too late if you want to play my Pint Predictor game. All the rules on the side, over 18s, get stuck in if you want to predict some games, win some pints. I believe you get a free pint of Guinness just for joining, so do if you haven't already. But all those comments below on those teams, and I'll catch you next time.